All right, guys, we have a great treat on. We've had him on previously live in New York. We have him on again. It's our 69th episode with Coach Burgomaster on. Welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you guys having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. It was really cool to have you on this summer. If you haven't listened to the episode where we had him and Coach Pruitt on live in Brooklyn at a brewery before the draft, it was great. It was last minute, but we had a lot of fun out there, and we got the pleasure of walking them to the arena too. Got to have some good conversations, and we're just excited to have you on fully and really get to embrace it this time. And we had like a time issue last time, so now we can really kind of get in there and ask the good stuff.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, we were yeah, like you said, it happened last minute, but we had a blast last time and didn't know I was doing it until right up until it right up until it, but excited to be on.
Yeah. We see you on the bench right next to Bruce Pearl, kind of whispering in his ear, that we see that on game day, but we'd love to just kind of give the listeners a little bit of what is your role as you see it on the team. I know we talked about scheduling this last time you were on. We know you're whispering in his ear during the game. We'd love to hear some of the stuff you're telling him during the game. Like, just go through a little bit of what your role is on the team.
Sure. So my title is recruiting coordinator / assistant to the head coach. My responsibilities are kind of all over the place. To kind of understand, just to give you a little background about, joining the team. Like I started as a grad assistant for Coach Pearl in 2017. Did that for a year and a half, and then got promoted to full time staff about halfway through the year. My bad. I actually started as a graduate assistant in 2016, and then got promoted halfway through the 2017-18 season, and have been in a full time role since then. So, a lot of my responsibilities. I mean, the main one, it's a lot of operations type stuff. So, like our day to day schedule as a team. I'm kind of the one that communicates with all of our players, all our staff. And kind of communicates externally. In the athletic department with our, with the program and that sort of stuff. A lot of like helping check on guys' academics and making sure everything's good with them on a daily basis. And then when it comes to the recruiting coordination stuff, like a lot of planning of our visits, setting up what it looks like when recruits come on campus, setting up schedules when coaches go out to go see recruits play. And then, when it comes to the actual basketball stuff, nobody wants to really hear about any of that other stuff. But when it comes to the actual basketball stuff, I'm a part of Coach Ira Bowman's scout team, so work really close with him. We handle a third of the scouts, and then Coach Pearl has me focus on the offense a lot of times, and so just trying to help him, throughout the game, sort of go through what he liked ahead of time and kind of fire things off at him to help him play call and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of and then scheduling is another thing too. Yeah, that's I do our non-conference schedule and kind of, and then it's a bunch of other just random stuff that pops up here and there. But I'd say that kind of overall sums up what I do on a day-to-day basis.
What about on game day? You say you're concentrating on offense. We see you over there next to Bruce or they're next to Coach Pearl. And what was it something you're kind of whispering in his ear? What are you telling? What are you looking for? What is he looking for from you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, one of the things that we do is we have, a list of play calls that, we like going into a game based on what we've seen in scouting, based on what are just good looks that have been effective for us throughout the year, that maybe tweaked a little bit, to go up against how somebody's going to guard it. But, basically it's just trying to keep him, everything's going on the defensive end of the floor, trying to, start thinking about whatever the next possible thing might be. Just to, because one of the things Coach Pearl does an amazing job of is, you can put a suggestion into his head and he can process whether he thinks it's going to work or not, in a very quick amount of time and decide whether he wants to go with it or not. So a lot of those things, I'm just kind of firing suggestions, based on, what he liked ahead of time, because he's got to deal with all the other facets of the game. I mean, you guys see how hard he coaches. It's just trying to basically throw ideas to him as things are, as in the heat of the moment, so that whether if he likes it, he'll go with it. If he doesn't, it's like firing off two or three other things, and so it's just trying to kind of help him, plan ahead for that side of the ball.
Is there a you've been with them for a while now doing this kind of throwing the ideas out there. Surely you have a couple that happened that worked out really well. You saw something in the game, something on defense that was happening to us, and you said, do this, and coach took it, flipped the game. Is there anything you can like brag on? You're like, man, that was one of my shining moments. Coach knows I called that one.
Yeah. I mean, so we kind of talked about, I mean, even going back to just this Arkansas game, we sort of liked a certain action against Arkansas, but we kind of knew that the way that they guarded is they were going to make our catches difficult. So, we have a certain action in that requires a lot of passing in order to get to the action that we want. And so honestly, and coach talked about this on the radio post game, but honestly about 5-10 minutes, before our shoot around, which is the last time we're going to get together with the guys, before, it's game time, really. I kind of came up with this idea, and then we ended up going with the first play of the game, and Wendell makes a three and gets fouled. I kind of wish I'd never suggested it again, because it would have had 4 points per possession on that play, and that's the best you could possibly do. So, that's one example that jumps to mind of recent, that people will understand and was recent. So
that was our next question. You led right into it. We heard a rumor that was true, and that's probably where the rumor came from the radio post game. So kudos.
And the fans want to know why we don't do a 4-point play every time. Come on, every time we go on the floor, let's get 4 this time. If you can get more than 3, more than 2, there you go.
We draw it up. Sometimes it's just all about execution. So yeah, that was a good one. That was an exciting one.
So you mentioned being on Ira's team, Coach Bowman's team for the scout. Fascinating, and this might not be as much your thing. We kind of throw stuff at you. Don't answer anything you don't want to answer. But do we know who had the scout for this Arkansas game? Because the defensive strategy of playing the zone that we did was really fascinating. Was that your team, or was that a different team that had the scout?
That was Wes Flanagan and Chad Pruitt. So they work together. They've had Arkansas, for the last number of years. And Coach Pruitt, being a former high school coach, just kind of watched a lot of their film and realized just a very standard playing 2-3 zone was something that was going to potentially bother them. And we hadn't really shown it much. Sometimes in those higher profile games, it's nice to have something in your pocket that you can surprise the opposing coach with. And ours just happened to be, that zone. And, knowing that was a team that struggled to shoot it from 3. Our biggest concern was being able to rebound out of it. But yeah, that was all them. And, they had a great plan, and we did a great job of working on it and executing it. In such a short turnaround. Going from playing a game and only having 2 practices. So
is that one of those things where you go in with a plan, right? And everybody knows the plan kind of gets thrown out depending on what happens in the game. I don't want to ask if you were surprised how that played out, because obviously you asked the kids to commit to what you're trying to do defensively, but did it kind of settle in about halfway, through the first half that, hey, we're going to be doing this zone? It's really making them think, it's slowing the game down. Was that a good example of maybe you stick to something even more than you might have expected going in?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming in, their plan was, maybe to mix that in, after timeouts, maybe mix it in when we scored, that sort of stuff. Then down the stretch, it came into like, hey, make or miss, we're sprinting back into this, and so because of how effective it was. And so, yeah, that definitely happens. And I think, I think credit to Coach Pearl and the rest of the staff. I think one of the things that we do really well for the most part is adjust at halftime. And really talk about, the effectiveness or little tweaks or whatever, and come out stronger and like having a good idea of, what's going to help us win the game, in the second half. So that was definitely, the zone at halftime was 0.3 points per possession in the half court, and man-to-man was 0.5. Both are tremendous, but the zone just happened to be a little bit better. So we wanted to go with it more.
Do you think last year with this big turnover of players we had last year, and then this year we had a bunch of players that stuck around even more than I think a lot of people thought, would you have been able to throw that same zone, you think, last year with 2 practices? Do you think that was veterans coming back, or is that something you can really implement quickly?
Yeah, I mean, so we work on the zone in the off season. We work on the zone sporadically throughout the year. Because at a certain point, you're like, there's going to be just a night where whatever your plan was isn't necessarily working. A team's just hot, and you just need to throw another look at them. And so we always kind of have it in our back pocket. This particular render, and the thing about our zone is we kind of really try to tweak it to fit what our opponent does. So this particular zone happened to be, something that was fairly simple as far as the rules for our guys. So we were able to spend a considerable amount of time on it in practice in a couple of days, but like it wasn't like there was a million looks out of it that we had to go against. So, they were able to really buy into it and understand what we were trying to get done.
Gotcha. Well, it's interesting to hear you say Wes Flanagan gets Arkansas every year on his scout. We heard Stephen Pearl's been on before. He tells us he gets Tennessee every year on his scout. Who's on your scout team? And clearly, what is your like hometown, team that you're scouting against? Clearly, I don't know if these guys are requesting Arkansas, requesting Tennessee, or if Bruce says like, that's an extra motivation right there. Who's your teams, if you don't mind telling?
So Ira and I, let's see. So we've had so far this year, we had the opener with George Mason. We had Texas Southern. We had Northwestern in Cancun.
What a defensive draw up, man. You drew up the defense there. Who would have thought we would have won a game in the 40s?
Yeah. I mean, and defense, the defenses around the country are so good this year, and offense is really hard to come by. So I always, with a little bit of pause, let people know that I help focus on the offense, because people tend to give me a couple weird looks when I say that. But yeah, so Northwestern, Colgate was us, at USC was us. We had Florida, and then we'll have Ole Miss Tuesday night. So and then who else do we have? We have LSU, we have West Virginia, and we have Missouri. And then I think that rounds out what we do for the year. So
there's no you have every year, or is that kind of mixed up for you every year? Do you have any? You're a Kermit Davis specialist?
So we've had Ole Miss in spurts. So like the way it works, right, is we try, if we've done a really good job and had somebody for a long time, you know what I'm saying, we try to keep that. But sometimes the schedule doesn't permit us, because you don't ever want a situation where somebody has 3 in a row, because we go into so much detail on our scouts, and have to watch hours and hours of film to break it down into these simple concepts for our guys, that it's hard to do a bunch in a row. So sometimes you have to just get off of somebody, to make the schedule work a little bit more. But yeah, we try, I'm trying to think. I mean, we had South Carolina for forever, but now that it's a new coaching staff, it changes up for us a little bit. But unfortunately for Ira and I, we don't play too many teams in the Northeast, so there's no like hometown, extra motivation for us. We just, we're just competitive and just want to beat everybody.
I think in our heads, we've had a couple coaches that not necessarily had our number, but seemed to struggle against or just really like frustrate our teams. Frank Martin at South Carolina was really frustrating because how hard they played defense over there, how physical they were. Mike White that was at Florida and is now at Georgia. And, we just saw he's really got something he's got going over there. And Kermit Davis seems to have something going with us. You've got the scout this time, I don't know if you could speak at all just to Kermit Davis himself, what the coaching philosophy like, how interesting it is to play him,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing, if you're going to go up against a Kermit Davis coach team, is you have to be ready for you have to be prepared for everything. I mean, they're going to throw a 1-3-1, a 2-3, man-to-man at you. They're going to guard your under out of bounds and side out of bounds 2 to 3 different ways, and then, he does a tremendous job of getting the guys in spots that they're going to be successful in a multitude of different concepts and ways. So it's like, even his teams are just so hard to prepare for, and so our guys have done a pretty good job of locking in these in another 2-day practice. Like, we got to just get on. Obviously the Arkansas win was great. We got to get on, because we have a lot that this guy's going to throw at us. And so sometimes it's funny, like sometimes if you don't find a way to manage to spend enough time on each thing, that can expose you in a game. And that can be why some teams struggle with him, and sometimes we've had struggles in the past is, maybe they've shown all man in 1-3-1 and we didn't spend as much time on the 2-3 zone. And that's what he finds out that's working, you know what I'm saying? And so
is he moving that you think through the game? Like, let's see what they didn't prepare for. Let me throw this, let me throw that. And then by the second half, he's kind of figured out that he threw this one and y'all didn't know what to do,
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so that's, and that's where, you kind of hope that he tries to throw everything at you in the first half, because then you have the opportunity at halftime to really make those
Mm.
like those adjustments and take a second to really, figure out what the best way to attack that is. And so yeah, so I mean that's one of the things with him. And I mean, Mike White too, for example, like throws a bunch of they just throw so much stuff at you, and they really test your preparation. And so it's both those guys are really good. I mean, all the coaches in our league are really good. I mean, Frank Martin's teams used to just deny everything, and if you don't, you don't see that every night. So like if you don't, and it's hard to kind of replicate that in practice too, right? So it's like, it just tests your preparation, and that's what the league has gotten to. Like every night, you have to have prepared, and that's why we split up into these groups so that we're very prepared.
Well, let's talk a little scheduling. Appreciate you giving us some insight there. That's fun for us just to hear some of the inside stuff of what y'all are doing. You're the non-conference guy. Obviously the conference schedule is given down from the league. So, I would say this is not just because you're on the podcast. It's been great for Auburn fans to just see how much better our non-conference scheduling has gotten in terms of the metrics and in terms of, and I know there's a lot that goes into that with schedules and who you want to play or who's willing to play you. Can you give the fans just a little bit of, what's our Auburn's philosophy since you've been involved? What are we looking for in the non-conference, and what does that look like for you? Is that a year-round thing that you're always looking ahead at? Just give us an idea there.
What ingredients make the stew here? It feels like you got to throw, you have to kind of mix in the tournaments and the good G5 teams and a couple P5 teams, some home and homes, that Atlanta tournament. It seems like so complicated to get the recipe right.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely complicated. I mean, I think, especially, now that we're 2, 3, 4 years into the net too, the philosophies have had to change a little bit too, because the net, I think we understand the net and how it really works a lot better than we did when it first came out, and even in scheduling. So our general philosophy, right, is we want to try, we want to play more home games than games away from home. So that's your first breakdown. You want to play at least 7 home games, and then that gives you 5, 6 away from home games to play with. We're going to try to be in a high level MTE every year. And then with those 5, 6 games away from home, you're trying to maximize the amount of quad one opportunities that you're going to have. Now, it's hard to necessarily guarantee that any of them are going to be guaranteed opportunities, but you're trying to maximize them as much as possible. And so we'll be in an MTE, which will take up 2 to 3 games. We always want to try to play in the area, whether it's Atlanta or Birmingham. Down the road, we still need to go play in Huntsville. That's something that we'd like to go do at some point, but just to show support to our fans in this general area, that it's not always as easy coming to Auburn to see us play. We'll come and play in front of you a little bit. And then we're not necessarily afraid to play anybody. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's a great home and home or a great neutral opportunity, we always listen to every opportunity that's presented to us. Evaluate if it's the right thing for us for that upcoming year, and then go from there. And then I think the other question is it an all year round thing? Partially. I mean, I think for us, some of the bigger, whether it's the neutral events or the home and homes or the MTEs, that stuff we'll schedule all throughout the year, and we'll work on all throughout the year. But when it comes to some of the teams that the guarantee games, and the teams that you pay to come play in Auburn, some of those we like to wait until after the season, especially with the transfer portal, and the way rosters change so much from year to year, just to have a pretty good evaluation of what those teams are going to look like, and have have as much information as we can have to kind of predict where they're going to be, as far as quad 2, quad 3, quad 4. And then coach always talks about it, right? Is a lot of times with those games, we like to try and play teams that either went to the NCAA tournament within the last couple of years, or won their league in the regular season, or projected to be in the top 2 of their leagues, because, while we may be more athletic and may have a little bit more talent, those are teams that know how to win. And so we think that does a good job preparing our guys, for when, the talent and the athleticism is going to increase. that they know they've played against someone that knows how to win and knows, is a team that has a chance to be in the field.
What's it like trying to call some of these more established P5 teams or major teams to play in Neville Arena? What's that conversation like?
Yeah, it's not it's not always the easiest thing. I'll go ahead and say, like, you're not necessarily, and someone like me is not necessarily going up and cold calling, the Dukes or UNCs of the world. I mean, like, part of that is, a little bit of Coach Pearl's relationships, with some of those guys. Part of that is sometimes these event organizers will help connect you. There's a million different ways that some of these games get done. But it depends. Some teams are willing to play anywhere and play anyone, and Neville Arena is an amazing home court advantage. And I mean, I don't necessarily know if I was in their shoes that I don't necessarily know that it's smart scheduling to try and go play us on the road. As like, I think there's better quad one opportunities that are more winnable out there.
We had Lee Miller on the podcast a couple episodes back, and it was really interesting to kind of hear about this industry that maybe a lot of people don't see behind the scenes, that plan these games out, that plan these tournaments out. We played in the Bahamas last year. Amazing. We learned a ton about our team in that UConn double overtime. We had to play Mexico this time, which had fun. You talk about that Northwestern game. We have New York or Brooklyn coming up next year, which is awesome. We did that a couple years back. We're doing it again as a New York Auburn alum. Very excited to go to there. And I think too, it's not on Thanksgiving this time, so I can actually go. Us New York alums have to, I know it's bad for travel for everybody else, but we usually have to go home for Thanksgiving, and we miss those kind of things. So I'm very excited being there. I think there's a lot of New York Auburn alums and people want to travel up, but are there other, I think one of the other big tournaments in my head is Maui. There's an Orlando tournament. There's a couple of Nike tournaments and Oregon tournaments that I know we probably can't get into, but in your eyes, what are the big other tournaments you're kind of eyeing? And who else is there? Do they come to you? Do you go to them? How do we make ourselves more like ingratiated, or what can the fans do, to get us in some of these big ones, these big matchups?
Yeah. I mean, so I think, for me, I think like Maui is the pinnacle of the MT. I mean, I think everybody knows that one. That one's like the number one sort of deal. And that tournament's run by, a former coach, gentleman that used to coach at South Carolina, Dave Odom. And so when we originally got into that, that was all based on Coach Pearl, in the same way that he sort of built our program, is like I promise you, you're going to like the product, when just give us the opportunity, what I'm saying? Like, I just trust me, we're going to have tons of fans there. We're going to, have a competitive team, all that sort of stuff. And so from there, right, like once you've been in at one time and we had obviously we didn't win Maui, but we played well in stretches and had some good games and had a great turnout from our fans. You sort of develop a relationship with those event planners and that sort of stuff, and kind of keep in touch. And it's always just like, hey, let me know. And so, not to backtrack a little bit, like there's rules. You can only play in events like that every 4 years, and so you kind of just say, hey, let me know when the next opening is. And because the other thing too is they're not going to put 2 SEC teams in there too, so it's like there's kind of like a rotation and there's certain windows and that sort of stuff. And I'd say next after that, the battle for Atlantis is growing, and that's that's Lee Miller's event, her group. But like I think that's like the next up. That has a chance to be the next Maui. And it's had some incredible fields. And that was another. Obviously, we had that classic game that unfortunately we didn't win with UConn last year, but the fields down there have been incredible. And same sort of thing. I mean, just the relationship that, first of all, I think I texted Lee probably about 50 times to get us in there the first time. And now it's funny, she put together our Israel trip, and just having the relationship with her, same sort of thing. Let us know when the next opening is. We had a great experience. Our fans loved it. We're in, that sort of stuff. And so it just kind of happens. It just matches up with those windows, and like we said, like we want to try and get into the best one of those as possible. And then obviously ESPN puts together a ton of great events, like you said, the one in Orlando. There's always stuff in New York City. That's always really good, and so, but I sort of think I sort of think Maui and Battle for Atlantis are sort of the crown jewels when it comes to MTEs. And we can't get into any of the PK stuff because that's all Nike. So
is there any you're aiming at for right now? You're trying to say, man, we haven't been in this one yet. We got to see what we can do here.
stay tuned. That's all I'll say.
Is this any of this driven? We hear about in another sport about bowl games with tickets. Is any of this like the Auburn fans will travel? We will be there. Is it all TV? Is there anything we can do as fans to be like, let us in? We'll buy all the tickets.
I mean, I think like you nailed it on the head. Like if we show up and buy tickets, they're going to want us back. And I mean, Auburn fans have been unbelievable, and we talk about all the time. It's probably easy. It might be easier to go see us in Maui than it is to see us in Neville Arena at times. With how tickets are there. So I mean, Auburn fans have been unbelievable about that. Yeah, that's the way. Buy tickets, watch it, and they'll want us back.
Nice.
Oh, you want to go mine?
Yeah.
So you mentioned you've been here since 2016, right?
Yep.
Before you were with Jim Larrañaga in Miami, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Maybe you can even back up a little bit, and I think you and I may have chatted about this a little bit walking over, but just to give people an idea, you're in this really cool role that everybody I'm sure is enjoying hearing. You talk about now. What did you pick up anything from that time in Miami? Was there another formative thing before that kind of got you in to where you are now? Like, are we missing anything between regular, Burgo from the past and how you got to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I was a student manager. I did my undergrad at the University of Miami. I was a student manager. My first year being a part of college basketball was that Miami team in 2012-13 with Shane Larkin. They won the ACC regular season. They won the ACC tourney. Made a run to the Sweet 16. And just getting to be around a program like that on an everyday basis and seeing how to win, was awesome. I mean, it made I didn't necessarily go into college knowing that I wanted to do this, and just being around that on a daily basis was like, wow, this can be really, really awesome from a basketball standpoint. And then you continue, the next 3 years and just the relationships you build, and the ability to see like the way the coaching staff at Miami had such great influence and helping these young men grow up. And it's just, it's like, wow, you get to do two things that are awesome. You get to, coach basketball, and you get to, help, build up and grow young men. And it's like the combination of that was unbelievable. I think, the biggest takeaway I had from my time at Miami was, just, and one of the biggest comparisons I'd say between Coach Larrañaga and Coach Pearl is, they understood how to give their players confidence, and understanding that the better the players feel about themselves, the better that they're going to perform. And I think both Coach Larrañaga and both Coach Pearl do that at a really high level. And I think that's part of the reason why they've both had a ton of success at every stop that they've been at. I think as far as like learning the game, I mean, I had the opportunity to work under, like there's some assistant coaches that are at the University of there was 3 assistant coaches that are all head coaches at the Division I level right now. All the grad assistants I worked under are a bunch of assistant coaches in the NBA and across Division I, and then coming to Auburn and working with this amazing staff. I mean, I've just been really fortunate to just kind of be a sponge around a lot of these people and just pick up and learn, and just be a student of the game. And so that was kind of that's the biggest takeaway from there.
You've been at Auburn for a bit. We talked when we talked to you this summer, we talked about how this staff has really stuck around a lot longer than a lot of other staffs. It seems to have a good time with it, seems to have a lot of good chemistry, seems to be happy with where they're at. But also I know in basketball coaching, assistant basketball, the entire career is a lot of moving around. I mean, people move around careers a lot, but basketball coaches move around like crazy and puts their families all over the place. Where are you looking future wise? Like, is your ultimate goal to be a head coach? Is there other things you're looking at? What was the future of Coach Burgomaster look like?
Yeah, I mean, the next step for me, at some point is I'd like to be like an assistant coach, like accountable coach, someone that goes out and recruits and that sort of stuff. And the ultimate goal is I do want to be, a head coach in the game of basketball at some level someday. I'm just right now focused on pouring into, the opportunity that I have and doing the best possible job I can do here. And whatever opportunities come from that happen. But there's tons of different ways to get to the ultimate goal. But I'm just focused on trying to take it, one day at a time, and and do the best job I can do here. And if I do that and we're successful, things will happen for me.
Well, we love to hear, the coaching tree for Bruce Pearl. We're hoping, I think this is our era we're going to look back on. Be like, this is the golden era right now. We're hoping some of you guys, we don't want to see you go or anything, but we're really hoping one day when Coach Bruce Pearl hangs it up, we have somebody like you or maybe Steve or any of these other guys that have kind of like gone out and grown and can come back to us one day. So don't forget about us if you're a head coach one day.
That'd be really cool. I hope that happens too.
So while you're on this journey, in coaching and enjoying being with the guys, I follow you on Instagram. Everybody else should. There's some funny stuff that gets posted. You've got some game. You're playing some pickup. I don't know about during the season. Give us a little, if we were playing you in a pickup game tomorrow, what's the scouting report on yourself? Like, what's the game looking like right now? How are we feeling? Just give us a little bit on that.
Yeah, if any of my coworkers see this, they're gonna make a lot of fun of me for it. But I always joke around that my game's kind of a combination of Jokic and Giannis a little bit, and so I like to post some highlights on Instagram of pulling from Wendell thinks he's Logo Wen. Well, I do that in pickup way more than he does that in the game. So
Logo Berg.
Yeah, no, I mean we try and get out there and get up and down, and I post the one shot that I make and make myself look good, but I don't post all the misses. And so we love to try and just get out there and compete and run up and down. I mean, it's such a fun game, as you guys know, and so getting a chance to play it whenever we can is the best. We have a lot of fun doing it.
Giannis Jokic that's a tough guard. That's a tough guard to ask. So.
No doubt. Got to take away the three in the shot and got to stop me from getting downhill.
Oh man! Now, if your coworkers see it, they're going to have to scout. That you're worried about them making fun of you, but they're going to be excited. They know now.
Doesn't matter.
They know. They already know.
Can't be stopped. Can't be stopped. On we were talking about your Instagram. I think everybody should follow your Instagram. IG Berg, Final Four Berg, Thanos Berg, Summer Berg, Logo Berg. Who is the real Berg, and how many are there?
That's the thing is. Lots of different Bergs. I don't know. Like with the last name Burgomaster, everybody's been calling me Burgo since I was, could walk. And when I first went to college, I tried to tell everybody my name was Mike, and instantly everybody started calling me Burgo, and everybody on the coaching staff calls me Burgo. And so I don't know. I just thought it was funny to put a bunch of different random words in front of the nickname that everybody gives me, and there we go. There's your caption.
Are there any hidden Burgos, any hidden Bergs coming out that we don't know about? Is there like a Hulk Berg that we don't know that gets mad when something happens?
I think the next goal is national champion Berg. I don't know when that's going to happen, but that's the goal. I'd love to be able to post that at some point in my life.
Yes, sir. So well, my next thing I wanted to ask about was kind of, to bring it back to this current team. There's been a kind of interesting energy at times. We saw that Georgia game, the energy was a little down, and there's a lot of like buy-in that really has to happen on defense, and kind of a certain, you hit those first couple shots and the energy can just twist altogether. We saw the Arkansas game. I think there's a lot of talk on this podcast, fans out there like, oh man, that Georgia energy was just kind of down a bit. And then he had some shots early in the Arkansas game. We all know it was a revenge game also at the Arkansas that kind of changed things. We've also seen Bruce bring this motivational factor to a couple different teams. That 4-14 SEC year where you wore the shirts that said 4-14 on it. It feels like this team, like, I know Coach Pearl is kind of a motivational master. Is there something on this team that he's kind of pushing towards, a kind of motivational quote, something that the team can kind of get behind?
It's not coming to my mind any particular one thing. I mean, I think each individual contest and each individual opportunity has its own, motivation in some regards. I mean, I think I think with some of the returners, it's always like, nobody wants to give credit to you guys for last year. It was all Walker and Jabari and that sort of stuff. And so like you have an opportunity to show them. And then I think with some of the newcomers is, you guys were overlooked in a lot of ways, whether, it was your ranking out of high school or, where you maybe got recruited when you first, came out of college and that sort of stuff. And so he always finds a way to really try and get these guys to run through a wall for him and play hard. And I think that, the thing about our league right now is, especially on the road, it's just hard. Like every night is hard. It doesn't matter who you're going up against. There's going to be opposing fans in the stands. that, help the other team have an extra, the way that the jungle, really boosts our guys up is unbelievable. And so, how can we continue to use that motivation to, like you said, get the energy up, and when we don't have thousands of people cheering us on, like what can we find to, get the motivation to try and play hard enough to make the right play every possession, because every possession matters, and every night's hard. So
last question we got, and then we got some rapid fire, but this will be the last one on this team. I think there's clearly a defensive identity with this group, right? Like, I think everybody who's watched all year, really solid. Like, when they're locked, when everything's buttoned up, it's a tough team to score against. Obviously, the offense has been a topic of a lot of conversation. Of course, I think people forget that when shots go in, the coaches and the players look so much better. So a lot of it is hitting some shots, right? At halfway through the year, are you guys as a staff, I know you're never satisfied, but are you feeling comfortable with the quality of shots you're starting to get and kind of the identity of the offense? It's very different with a guy like Janai Broom, the skill set he has in the post. I know we've seen way more post touches than we've ever seen. Are y'all feeling good about the direction of the offense, even if the shots aren't always falling, like you're getting good looks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for us right now is, getting a shot up before we turn it over. And I think that's a constant theme that you'll hear from our coaching staff to our players. And I think, when we've had our lower turnover games, our offense has looked a lot better, just because we're such a high level offensive rebounding team that, if we never even get it up on the glass or on the rim, we have no chance to go get that ball that we get 40% of the time, or I don't know what our numbers are. So I think our guys, kind of understand, and the one luxury for them is just about everybody in the country is playing defense the same way for the most part right now, where they're playing this, what we call drop coverage, where, their five men's not really leaving the paint. And so where you used to be able to get a lot more out of your, like the roll, throwing it to the roll man, and pick and roll, like a lot of times your guards are having to take these mid-range jump shots, which, isn't percentage wise a great shot, but from our standpoint, if at least we get it up there, we have a chance to go get it and get a close touch, and maybe get fouled and get to the offensive glass. So, I mean, I think, at about the halfway point of the year, I think we, we figured out the buttons to push with these guys. It's just constantly, tweaking and adjusting looks, and, every once in a while you're going to have to adjust to a team that guards a completely different way. But, I think the biggest thing for us is just shoot it before we turn it over.
Well, I had one more I wanted to add to the list after listening to Bruce today. He talked about Sharif Cooper and his time at Auburn, and we talked about how Gray's playing in the G League, and we all really missed out, I think, on an amazing year. We were so excited. He came out and just blew us away in those couple games he did get to play. Can you shine any light now that it's been a little while on what happened, why we didn't get to see him the whole time? Feel free to, brush it off, but we'd love to hear anything about what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, from my standpoint, I mean, I think that's probably a story coach has told in the past, in some of his media stuff. If he hasn't, I don't necessarily know that it's my place to talk about it all. But having Sharif for the 10 games that we had, I mean, it was a blessing to have Sharif in our program, and he's such a great kid, and he's a hard worker, and he's fearless. He's a leader, and so. And he was a really special point guard, for us. And so, wishing the best for him now. He's dominating in the G League, and hope he gets an opportunity to play at the higher level, or, if not, get at a high level overseas. And, he's just going to continue to work and prove people wrong. And he still has that chip on his shoulder from when he was 5'2", as, a first grade, or not a first grader, as a freshman, and, was still the best player on the floor, but, didn't get as much, look because he was small. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't feel like it's my place to talk about that. So I'm gonna brush that one off.
Hey, that was a good answer. We got you some rapid fire here before we let you off. So we'll see, just give us something quick on the next couple ones. If you could schedule any team in America for home and home, who would it be?
It would probably be North Carolina.
North Carolina. All right. Favorite food in Auburn? Favorite food, like an Auburn establishment that you just love?
I really like Acre.
Acre. All right, man. That place is delicious. Since I've been there 10 years ago, the food has just gotten so much better. Acre, fantastic.
So good. Ate there the other night.
I think we all have these songs we work out to and we get, go nuts for when we think, what if the DJ played this when the team came out? Do you have that song that you're like, man, if they could play this when the team came out?
Oh, if they could play this when the team came out, I think it goes back to when I played basketball in high school. I want to say it was uh, what was the name of the song? It's now escaping my mind. I want to say it was a Waka Flocka song that used to get us fired up. I can't
Hard in
remember
the
what.
paint? Is it Hard in the
Might
Paint?
it might have been Hard in the Paint, or it might have been Hard in the Paint. It was a different one, but something by Waka
He
Flocka.
he
That's
came to
that's what I want here.
Auburn. He came to Auburn when I was there, and I went hard in the paint. It was great. I wish I could have came out to play basketball to that.
Yep.
You get a lot of Auburn apparel, and you've been there a while now, so you've gotten a decent amount of Auburn apparel from Under Armour and from places. Is there a hoodie or a shirt, or what was your favorite piece you ever got from them?
It's got to be it's got to be the Final Four shirt. I mean,
Yeah,
that's something that I still rock. It's just a T-shirt, but I rock it all the time. Just the Final Four shirt for sure.
there you go. Favorite former player to coach from the Auburn
Um,
teams?
I mean, I think it was probably Jared Harper, because Jared, and our guys now do this too, but Jared had such a great understanding of the offense, and he had such a great understanding that, like, let's try and find a way to get Bryce a shot no matter what. And so, like, just him, he'd be able to call like every fourth or fifth play, and just and nail it a lot of the time. So just him having that understanding and giving feedback about coverages that the defense were doing, it was just a pleasure to coach here. He's just brilliant.
A lot of you guys have been on the staff. We've talked about this, and I wish I'd had this in the rapid fires all the other times so I could hear the different games. But what was the loudest moment in Auburn Arena, Neville Arena history, at least, or the times you've been there?
Yeah, there's been a lot of them.
You've had some great blow the top off moments.
I know. I still think this is. I still think it was Mustafa's dunk against Georgia, which is a really obscure one because it wasn't like a massive moment. It was just such a thunderous dunk. I think that was one of them. If not that, I'm gonna go with another one. If not that, it might have been Devin's dunk against Kentucky last year, potentially. I think that's probably another one. And there's a bunch of other ones that are kind of up in the run. I mean, it's just, how you get that loud noise environment thing on your Apple Watch. I just get that, pretty much throughout the game on mine. So it's always loud. I got to get my ears fixed.
That's a Neville Arena problem right there. Final question. We had you in New York City live at the draft. You're coming back again, hopefully for the draft. You're probably coming back again for the tournament next year. Can we get you on the podcast again in New York City?
I'm always down, and let's do it for longer next time.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Coach Burgomaster. Man, it's always great to have you. Hopefully we'll have you on again, and War Eagle.
War Eagle. Thanks, guys.